ជំរាបសួរមកសាទៀតអរគុណបងប្អូនយើងឥឡូវនឹងសម្ភាសលោក Felix. Hi Felix, I'm gonna begin with our session. As you know, you're an expert in Nicaragua topic and basically an expert in exile movement building. And I'm very grateful to have you join us here today. And regarding building resistance at home and abroad, Felix, your experience leading to a pro-democracy movement in Nicaragua under extremely repressive conditions, both inspiring and intrusive. Could you begin by describing how the resistance was sustained inside Nicaragua despite crackdowns from Ortega regime, and how Nicaragua abroad able to amplify that struggle?
First of all, thank you for this opportunity. It's inspiring.
Translation. It's okay, just English. Yeah, it's going to be a long time translating back and forth.
So first of all, let me say that this is inspiring to be among a community that, despite the struggles, the genocide, authoritarianism, exile, continues to carry the land in their heart and their spirit. As someone that has known from my personal experience what exile means, when I was a child, I was also forced into exile, and I was part of the Nicaraguan community that had to become part of a diaspora. I know that. So I want to begin by expressing my gratitude, my admiration to each of you, and thank you, my older sister Masakua, for the invitation as well to be here. So one of the big lessons that we learned when building a diaspora movement is that we need to reframe exile. That's the first lesson learned, that I think is not only a Nicaraguan lesson, it's a lesson that the Spaniards learned during the dictatorship of Franco in Spain. Is the lesson that the Jewish community learned with their long diaspora, is the lessons that the Irish learned as well, that your identity should not be limited to your territory. And that's what dictators want. What dictators want is to send the message that once that you have been removed from your homeland, from your territory, you lose your identity. However, when you reframe exile as a laboratory for democracy, when you reframe exile, as painful as it is, because we know that the scars of exile and the tears in airports and the tears in refugee camps, they are still with us, and we transfer that pain through generations. But when we reframe exile as a laboratory for democracy, as an opportunity to have the voice for the voiceless, because we are in free countries, whether we are in Australia or in France or in the United States. In the case of Nicaragua, we have over 1 million people, with Costa Rica, the United States, and Spain. When we reframe exile as a platform to fight back, then hope becomes an opportunity. But I would not want to romanticize exile. It's not easy. The first thing that a person loses when you're forced into exile, you lose the connection to your soil. You lose the connection to your community. And of course, becoming part of a diaspora implies that you have to learn a new language, you have to adapt to a new society. You feel disempowered because you cannot vote and participate in your homeland, but most typically you cannot also participate in the host country. So it's a painful process. But to your question, I conclude with a couple of ideas. The first is that mentally reframing exile and diaspora as an opportunity, because we are free. So in a free society, you can educate your children, they can have access, of course, to better opportunities, and also we carry our identity within us in the spirit, not with a physical soul, but we carry with the spirit. Yes.
Thank you so much, Felix. Regarding so you listed all the tools and basically able to talk about identity. So it's very relatable to Cambodia actually, because most people from the outside, especially for Cambodian community, that suffered the Khmer Rouge come to the United States rebuilding their life, and their kids sometimes haven't even go back to Cambodia, or they don't know that Cambodia even have a genocide and Khmer Rouge because it's so trauma to them. How do you keep those identity of, encourage the younger generation to be proud of that identity? And what is, the tool that can be implemented to make sure that older generation able to engage with the younger generation that grew up in the United States, like Jonathan, yeah.
Well, first of all, you have to acknowledge the fact that in order to have a future, you need to have a memory. And dictators know that, so they want to rewrite history, and we've seen that with dictators in Cuba, with the Communist Party in Cuba, we've seen it with the former Soviet Union, we've seen it in Venezuela, we've seen it in Belarus. They want to rewrite history. So diasporas play a fundamental role at different levels. One, you could use the most powerful, the most important one is rebuilding your identity at home. Rebuilding your identity at home and safeguarding your language, your tradition, exactly what you're doing over here. So that's an important part. Also, the memories, the testimonies of the victims. If those are not captured formally in books, if these memories, these narratives are not captured in academic research, if they're not captured in video, they will get lost. So my invitation for diasporas is, and nowadays that everyone has a camera, this is a really, really powerful tool. So those members of our community that today have memories, I'll tell you, just a couple of days, I lost my grandmother. She passed away at age 106 years old, 106, 2 days ago. She's now into a new journey, and thank you for that. But I was not able to see her for 4 years because I was in prison. I was not able to see her because I was under deep isolation, solitary confinement, tortured, but also because I was not allowed to speak to her. I was blocked from the town. But my point is that cherish the elder members of your community because they carry the memory of the nation. And it's so inspiring and so beautiful to see young people like you youth ambassadors, young people from Korea collaborating alongside your grandparents. They carry the memory, so interview them. Get your phone and ask them and record them on their phone. So we don't have to wait for a university to do that. And also, as part of the Freedom Academy, I will invite you to grasp the stories of the people who are survivors and carry that legacy, but with keeping in mind that it's not to cherish hatred in our hearts, not to seek vengeance, but to not to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Thank you so much, Felix. This is very important about you explaining of identity. So, just in case our Cambodian audience did not grasp the true meaning, I will translate into Khmer. បងប្អូនអញ្ចឹងគាត់និយាយថាខ្ញុំសួរគាត់ថាគាត់គឺជាអិសរាជជនមួយនយោបាយបើនិយាយទៅគឺតំណែងស្មើនឹងលោកប្រធានសាមញ្ញស៊ីហើយខ្ញុំសួរថាគាត់ធ្លាប់ជាប់គេចាប់គាត់ដាក់គុកយូរឆ្នាំជនផ្ដាច់ការហើយខ្ញុំសួរគាត់ថាបើជនផ្ដាច់ការចង់រំលាយគាត់នៅក្នុងស្រុកហើយគាត់ចេញមកក្រៅស្រុកនៅប្រទេសអាមេរិកហ្នឹងគាត់អាចធ្វើឲ្យសមាគមខ្មែរច្រឡំខ្មែរ Nicaragua ជនជាតិ Nicaragua នៅក្រៅប្រទេសហ្នឹងជិត1លាននាក់ដែលខ្វល់ខ្វាយពីប្រទេសជាតិរបស់ពួកគេដល់ថ្នាក់ថាឈានទៅដល់ UN ទៀតគឺគេមានកៅអីនៅក្នុង UN ទៀតខ្ញុំសួរគាត់ថាតើសម្រាប់ក្មេងៗចំនួនក្រោយហ្នឹងឲ្យពួកគាត់យល់ថាតើហេតុអ្វីបានប្រជាជនក្មេងៗ Nicaragua ដែលកើតនៅប្រទេសក្រៅហ្នឹងស្រឡាញ់នឹងអត្តសញ្ញាណខ្លួនឯងហើយហេតុអ្វីមានមោទនភាពជាប្រជាជន Nicaragua ហើយគាត់ថាទី1ចាស់ហ្នឹងអង្គពូមិញហ្នឹងមាន responsibility ថាមានកិច្ចការបង្រៀនទទួលខុសត្រូវក្មេងៗចំនួនក្រោយឲ្យយល់ថាស្រុកខ្មែរពីមុនយ៉ាងម៉េចពេលដែលមានរបបប្រល័យពូជសាសន៍យ៉ាងម៉េចហើយនឹង hai đây có ông pu mình nữa mà cho rùm rồi ngày nữa trong là biên ca plak đâu nó không sọc nhiều bởi vì ngày này dây chân từ câu môi rư môi có chai dương phong chai dương hai đây có từ sánh sọc máy có cả là sọc này nữa còn hai đầu vậy có trong cái khoa khoai bị sọc máy bởi ông pu mình ta dây đây dây bị sọc máy ta một ta nạp hiệp chia mà hai là cô mệt phong nữa chẳng bàn thà cứ sòng khăn một pot cứ dương vô bộ quát ao sánh ta sinh nhật thôn này hà thà hai ta dương miền ở vậy cứ chỉ khai chẳng chuyên chiên Nicaragua cái thôi chẳng mang chụp chế để xa kê cha đó ạ mà liên mẹ nơi cài bát nó bền câu khai là cài nơi cài bát nó ạ ao vô pi cá to sú rồi bỏ cót hai nơi rồi bỏ cha trong đám nơi bát Nicaragua này và chẳng anh đang dùng dây pi atasinyan identity. Thank you so much, Felix. I'm then translating. And I'm going to the next one. This is very important. I'm inspired by you. ខ្ញុំថាបន្ទាប់មកខ្ញុំគាត់ធ្វើខ្ញុំមានមោទនភាពគឺជារាជរដ្ឋបាលនេះតែគាត់ចេញ so for unpacking those strategy and the step when you brought Nicaragua crisis directly to United Nations. And this leads you to the ideas of having official voice, which is very difficult to do so on the global stage, even in exile. Like, how do you successfully do those? Felix, can you give us the tool or the strategies that to successfully able to make the UN grant you a seat in Security Council?
Well, even in the Nicaraguan case, it's complicated because you will always have other movements that do not feel represented by you. Because step number one, in terms of strategy, search and work thoroughly in your legitimacy. What do I mean by that? When you are a movement in exile, of course, we do not have elections, we don't have a government, so we are removed from the legitimacy process. And dictators know that, And on top of that, there are smear campaigns in which once you are in exile, you are typically accused of being a traitor, you're accused that you lost the language, you lost your community, you're accused that you are no longer a member of the nation. And on top of that, you have to confront, no matter if you are the Russian diaspora, or the Venezuelan diaspora, or the Cambodian or the Cuban diaspora, you're confronted with different generations of diaspora. And these different generations have different understandings of the political context. So some members of the diaspora may not feel political. They say, well, I come into, let's use the example of the US. I come into the US and I only care about educating my children, being absorbed into the community. Don't tell me about Nicaragua, don't tell me about Cambodia, don't tell me about Russia. I want my children to learn English, to be successful, and look to the future. And then you have other members of the diaspora that want to keep deeply connected to the land. And of course, they're more political. And sometimes you have tensions between civil society and organized political exile, which is two different expressions. So my first recommendation is search for legitimacy. What do I mean by that? If you're going to be a member of civil society, you have to have a clear mission and a goal as civil society. For example, diasporas in civil society, they have a great role in helping those recent exiles being absorbed into the community, express solidarity, have humanitarian assistance. But if you are a political organized movement in exile, your role should be different. And having that very honest conversations, it doesn't mean that we are split, it doesn't mean that we're divided, it means that we have different roles. But it's a complicated conversation that is required. However, when you have a member of civil society that is playing both roles, or a politician that is a politician but at the same time is doing humanitarian work, he or she is seen with suspicion because you don't understand the role. So having that open conversation, for example, saying we are a civil society movement, we care for cultural festivals, we care for humanitarian affairs, we care for entrepreneurship, building Cambodian businesses in California, for example, that's perfect. But also supporting the brothers and sisters who want to advocate for freedom in the United Nations, in Congress. So that's an important part. And the second part that is important is a clear vision of tomorrow. What kind of free country do we imagine? Because inside Cambodia, that conversation could not be taken in a free environment, or inside Venezuela, or inside Cuba, or inside China, because you don't have the space for debate. So not being in agreement is completely fine. That's freedom, that is democracy, having different visions. But trying to harmonize different visions into a document that presents, this is our vision for a united Cambodia, this is our vision for a free Cambodia, this is a vision for justice, for example, and putting that document together gives, and I will end up with this, to the rest of the members of the diaspora, the certainty that no one is working on their self-interest. That when someone is traveling to Geneva or to Brussels or to Washington, they're not working on their own individual goals. They're speaking on behalf of what you agreed in an assembly of leaders in exile.
Look, Felix, ខ្ញុំសួរថាតើគាត់ធ្វើអ្វីបាន UN United Nations យើងស្គាល់ហើយអង្គការសហប្រជាជាតិមកពិភពលោកមានតែ UN មានទទួលស្គាល់តែម្នាក់គត់ដែលអ្នករៀបតែគឺគាត់នឹងគឺគាត់អាចធ្វើជាគឺថាអង្គការមួយដែលនិយាយពីសម្លេងប្រជាពលរដ្ឋជុំវិញពិភពលោកហ្នឹងហើយគេអត់គ្រប់គ្រងប្រទេស Nicaragua ហើយកាលណាអញ្ចឹងគឺសម្លេងយើងនៅក្រៅហ្នឹងអាចធ្វើឲ្យអង្គការសហប្រជាជាតិលឺហើយគាត់ថាដើម្បីធ្វើអញ្ចឹងជោគជ័យគឺទី1គឺសម្លេងរបស់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនៅក្រៅប្រទេសហ្នឹងបើសិនជាយើងឧទាហរណ៍ថាដូចអ៊ំមួយសគ្រួឬមួយក៏លោកប្រធានសំណាក់ស៊ីទៅនិយាយហើយគាត់និយាយតែគោលនយោបាយរបស់ពួកគាត់ពួក UN គេថាគេអត់ចង់ស្ដាប់ទេគេចង់ស្ដាប់សម្លេងរបស់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋជុំវិញពិភពលោកដែលមានអត្តសញ្ញាណជាខ្មែរដែលមានសញ្ជាតិជាខ្មែរហ្នឹងដែលរស់នៅក្រៅប្រទេសហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹងគឺទី1គឺអង្គការក៏ដោយគណៈបកក៏ដោយគឺមានសិទ្ធិដើរជុំវិញពិភពលោកហ្នឹងសួរថាបងប្អូនចង់បានអីហើយដឹងថាបងប្អូនចង់បានអីហើយយកអ្វីដែលបងប្អូនចង់បានហ្នឹងយើងនឹងតែសេពី1រហូតដល់11រហូត100ហ្នឹងយកទៅប្រាប់អង្គការសហប្រជាជាតិថាបងប្អូនចង់បានចេះបោះមានភាពបោះឆ្នោតដោយសេរីនៅក្នុងស្រុកខ្មែរឈប់បិទសិទ្ធិមនុស្សអីចឹងទៅគឺអ្វីដែលបងប្អូនចង់បានហ្នឹងគឺយើងយកទៅនិយាយជំនួសបងប្អូនមិនមែនខ្ញុំនិយាយថាខ្ញុំចង់បានអីទេគឺប្រជាពលរដ្ឋខ្មែរនិយាយថាប្រជាពលរដ្ឋខ្មែរចង់បានអីហើយបើសិនជាបាទអរគុណហើយខ្ញុំសម្រាយបើសិនជាអង្គចង់ថែមមួយទៀតគឺអាចថែមបានជាភាសាខ្មែរអូខេពូហើយOkay. Okay. Okay. And thank you so much, Félix, for listening to my translation in Khmer.
Beautiful language. Beautiful language.
And this is what hit me deeply because I know that you have been through prison, forced into exile, and personal risk that you suffered. How do you maintain hope and avoid burnout as an activist, and also putting the politician hat to represent the people of Nicaragua from the outside, when the struggle for democracy seems endless, and the light at the end of the tunnel almost not exist at all? And how do you encourage your own diaspora and your own people from your community, both Nicaragua across the globe, to stay committed to the goal and the vision of a better Nicaragua? Yes. Okay.
We can lose many battles, but there's one battle we cannot lose, which is the battle for hope. We should never lose the battle for hope.
Okay. 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 And thank you so much, Félix, for listening to my translation in Khmer.
Beautiful language. Beautiful language.
This is what hit me deeply because I know that you have been through prison, forced into exile, and personal risk that you suffered. How do you maintain hope and avoid burnout as an activist, and also putting the politician hat to represent the people of Nicaragua from the outside, when the struggle for democracy seems endless and the light at the end of the tunnel almost not exist at all? And how do you encourage your own diaspora and your own people from your community, both Nicaragua across the globe, to stay committed to the goal and the vision of a better Nicaragua? Yes. Okay.
We can lose many battles, but there's one battle we cannot lose, which is the battle for hope. We should never lose the battle for hope.
Okay. A little bit difficult. So, would you like to help? Well, quote for quote, no, I want an accurate translation, so I'm asking an expert in Khmer. I'm asking word for word translation, like, so make sure it's deeply connected to the Khmer diaspora.
That's very
Yeah, it's okay, I can stand up here. Thank you for doing that. Very nice of you. So,
we can lose many battles, but one battle that we cannot lose is the battle for hope.
បាទគាត់ចង់មានភាសាថាតែយើងបរាជ័យយើងចាញ់សមរភូមិអីក៏ដោយប៉ុន្តែកុំបរាជ័យរឿងមួយការបាត់បង់ក្តីសង្ឃឹមយើងត្រូវសង្ឃឹមជានិច្ចណា
When we arise to the understanding that the dictator can take our land, our property, but they will never take the homeland from us, then you have a new energy to continue the struggle, to continue the journey.
ជាទូទៅមេដឹកនាំប្រជាការគាត់អាចយកអ្វីៗគ្រប់យ៉ាងដូចជាទ្រព្យសម្បត្តិដីធ្លីអីក៏ប៉ុន្តែគាត់មិនអាចយកមាតុភូមិដែនដីកំណើតរបស់យើងបានពីយើងទេដែលធ្វើឲ្យយើងមានក្តីសង្ឃឹមនៅក្នុងការទាមទារវាមកវិញបាននោះ
The physical territory and the property does not define my identity.
ដើម្បីកំណត់អត្តសញ្ញាណរបស់ខ្ញុំជាអ្នកតស៊ូគឺវាមិនមែនយើងសំខាន់ទៅលើការដែលហៅថាទ្រព្យសួនតួការដែលថាយើងចង់បានទ្រព្យសម្បត្តិសួនតួនឹងទេ
In this regard, exile is not defeat. It's a new opportunity to fight back.
ក្នុងនេះចង់ជំរាបចេះថាពេលដែលបងប្អូនលាចាកមាតុភូមិកំណើតរបស់យើងនិរទេសខ្លួនបែបនេះបានន័យថាយើងមកលើទឹកដីថ្មីហើយចិញ្ចឹមក្តីសង្ឃឹមដើម្បីតស៊ូប្រយុទ្ធទាមទារអ្វីដែលយើងមាននៅប្រទេសដើមរបស់យើងវិញ
We can speak because we have a voice, and in dictatorship we cannot speak out loud. So we can speak on representation of those who are voiceless.
ដូច្នេះហើយឆ្លៀតឱកាសដែលយើងមានសេរីភាពគ្រប់គ្រាន់គឺជាឱកាសដែលយើងអាចនិយាយបញ្ចេញសម្លេងជំនួសបងប្អូនយើងនៅឯប្រទេសកំណើតរបស់ខ្លួនដែលរងការធ្វើទុកបុកម្នេញនិយាយអីក៏មិនបានដោយស្រុកខ្មែរចឹងងើបមួយវាយមួយហ្នឹងណាមិនថែមទេ
So in translation, Hun Sen has this famous phrase: "If you get up one, I will beat you down one." So if you dare to stand up, even one person, he'll beat you down.
So it's important to understand that those in the homeland are listening, and also those who support the regime are also listening, and that's important not to speak with hatred. As some of you are Buddhists and we know the concept of interdependence. I'm Christian, and in Christianity we are taught that we have to forgive the perpetrators against sins against us. So when you give a message that you want freedom and justice, not vengeance, it touches the heart even of those who support the regime.
រឿងដែលសំខាន់បំផុតសម្រាប់បងប្អូនទាំងអស់គ្នាអ្នកតស៊ូបងប្អូនត្រូវចាំថាអញ្ចេះថានៅប្រទេសយើងនៅមានប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលគ្រប់គ្រងនិងប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលប្រឆាំងនឹងរដ្ឋាភិបាលដែរអញ្ចឹងពេលដែលយើងតស៊ូមតិគឺយើងធ្វើយ៉ាងណាកុំយកគ្នាជាសត្រូវយើងតស៊ូក្នុងផ្លូវសិលធម៌និងផ្លូវដែលមិនសងសឹកគ្នាមិនចង់អាឃាតគ្នាព្រោះបងប្អូនយើងកាន់សាសនាពុទ្ធគឺពីរងាប់ដោយការមិនចង់ពីនោះដែរខាងខ្ញុំកាន់សាសនាខាងគ្រីស្ទៀនក៏នៅតែមានការអនុគ្រោះអត់ឱនជនប្រព្រឹត្តប៉ុន្តែនៅក្នុងន័យថាយើងប្រព្រឹត្តតែអំពើល្អត្រឹមត្រូវដើម្បីឲ្យឈ្នះចិត្តអ្នកដែលប្រព្រឹត្តអំពើអាក្រក់
So when I was in prison, I knew that they could break my bones, they could scar my flesh, but I've always reminded myself that there was one thing they couldn't touch, which was my heart, to safeguard my heart. So coming out of prison with a clean heart that was not full of hate is an important weapon to fight for justice.
ជាជោគជ័យរបស់ខ្ញុំពេលដែលគេដាក់គុកខ្ញុំគឺគេដាក់គុកខ្ញុំតែរាងកាយបានន័យថាគេធ្វើវាយបាបទារុណកម្មលើរាងកាយអាចវាយខ្ញុំឲ្យបាក់ឆ្អឹងឬក៏ឆ្អែងយ៉ាងណាក៏ដោយប៉ុន្តែបេះដូងខ្ញុំគឺប៉ះមិនបានទេនៅស្អាតស្អំនៅពេលដែលខ្ញុំចេញពីពន្ធនាគារវិញគឺបានន័យថាគំនិតមួយគឺថាមិនសន្សំសេចក្តីស្អប់ខ្ពើមតែចឹងហើយធ្វើឲ្យប្រជាពលរដ្ឋគ្រប់រូបអាចទទួលយកបាន
This means, I will end up in a second, this means speaking very hard against the dictator, but not against those who at some point follow him. Because they're members of the diaspora that whether we like it or not, at some point we're connected to the regime. And that message is very important for unity. That was the only way that in our experience we were able to unite the diverse diasporas in Nicaragua that were with the communists, that were with the Sandinistas, that were with the Contras, which were the Reagan-backed guerrilla. So speaking with clarity that you're pursuing a new nation and that you're not pursuing vengeance is the fundamental tool for the unity of diasporas. Thank you. អញ្ចឹងសរុបសេចក្តីមកចង់ជម្រាបជូនបងប្អូនចេះថាការតស៊ូរបស់យើងដើម្បីសាមគ្គីដើម្បីឲ្យកម្លាំងរបស់យើងខ្លាំងរឹងមាំគឺយើងប្រកាន់ជំហរថាយើងដោះស្រាយតែជនផ្ដាច់ការយើងនិយាយទៅសមរភូមិប្រយុទ្ធរបស់យើងគឺធ្វើយ៉ាងម៉េចទម្លាក់ជនផ្ដាច់ការហើយក៏មិនគួរណាតែយើងមានភាពស្អប់ខ្ពើមតាក់ទងនឹងសកម្មជនរបស់ជនផ្ដាច់ការទេជួនកាលយើងអាចនឹងតាក់ទាញកម្លាំងរបស់ពួកគាត់ឲ្យមកចូលរួមជាមួយយើងបានដែរជាពិសេសបងប្អូនខ្មែរក្រៅប្រទេសថ្ងៃណាមួយគឺយើងត្រូវការពួកគាត់មកចូលរួមដើម្បីជារួមកម្លាំងគ្នាហើយអ្នកដែលគ្រប់គ្រងគណៈបកកណ្ដាលអំណាចឬក៏ជនផ្ដាច់ការមិនប្រកាសថាតាមជនផ្ដាច់ការរហូតទេតែគាត់មានជំរឿនគឺមកចូលរួមជាមួយបងប្អូនអញ្ចឹងបានតែជាគុំបង្កើតឲ្យមានភាពស្អប់ខ្ពើមគ្នាដែលធ្វើឲ្យយើងមិនអាចធ្វើការជាមួយគ្នាបាននេះជាការបង្កើនសាមគ្គីភាពឲ្យរឹងមាំហើយយើងយកឈ្នះជនបដិការបាន
Felix Felix so I am very moved by one story you told me when you were in prison and you got out you interviewed by a news media they asked do you hold any hatred toward the person that tortured you while you were in prison
អូនសាមឌីជំរាបសួរគាត់ថាតើកាលចេញពីពន្ធនាគារភ្លាមមានអ្នកសារព័ត៌មានសម្ភាសគាត់ភ្លាមថាជាប់គុកដោយសារតែគេធ្វើបាបមកមានស្អប់ខ្ពើមអ្នកដែលដាក់គុកគាត់ដែរឬយ៉ាងណាឥឡូវស្ដាប់ចម្លើយរបស់គាត់ It is very common for political prisoners I have my brother here Pastor Ivan Maguire he will tell you more it's very common for political prisoners to be released out of prison and it's completely understandable to voice your anger and your pain. It is completely understandable, and I do not blame anyone who has gone through the loss of her son, the assassination of a friend, an exile, to speak with anger. That is normal, is natural, and is human. ខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបចេះថានៅពេលដែលយើងត្រូវគេធ្វើទុកបុកម្នេញចាប់ដាក់ពន្ធនាគារសម្លាប់បងប្អូនក្រុមគ្រួសារឬក៏មិត្តភ័ក្តិយើងអ្នកតស៊ូជាសហការីរបស់យើងអ្នកណាក៏គេយល់ដែរថាយើងឈឺចាប់យើងចង់កំហឹងយើងចង់បញ្ចេញកំហឹងនឹងឲ្យគេដឹងអំពីការស្អប់ខ្ពើមអានេះគឺជារឿងសត្យានុម័តទូទៅបើយើងនិយាយក៏គ្មាននរណាថាយើងជ្រុលហួសហេតុពេកដែរបើសិនជាយើងចង់ធ្វើ Dictators know that and that's why they like to spread fear and hatred because they know that that poisons the spirit of the nation and they know how to deal with that because they want to divide and conquer ប៉ុន្តែសូមចាំថាមេដឹកនាំផ្ដាច់ការគឺគេប្រើយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រគេបែបនេះគឺគេធ្វើឲ្យយើងស្អប់ខ្ពើមដូចថាខឹងសម្បាទុកគ្នាជាសត្រូវអញ្ចឹងទៅដើម្បីឲ្យយើងបង្ហាញកំហឹងរបស់យើងឲ្យមានការស្អប់ខ្ពើមហ្នឹងអាហ្នឹងគឺគេឈ្នះចិត្តយើងហើយ So when I came out of prison after almost 2 years without seeing my family going through unspeakable acts of inhumane treatment and I was asked what I would do with my perpetrators. They were ready for my hate, but they were not ready for my compassion. ពេលដែលអ្នកកសែតសួរខ្ញុំថាតើជាប់គុក2ឆ្នាំព្រាត់ប្រាសគ្រួសារដែលបានជួបគ្នាសោះតើអ្នកនឹងខឹងសម្បាទៅជនប្រព្រឹត្តជនដៃដល់ដែលចាប់គាត់ដាក់ខ្ញុំដាក់គុកដែរយ៉ាងណាជាការពិតអ្នកណាក៏រងចាំចម្លើយខ្ញុំដែរគឺចម្លើយដែលខឹងសម្បាក្រេវក្រោតយ៉ាងចាស់ដៃតែម្ដងព្រោះគេធ្វើបាបខ្លាំងណាស់ក៏ប៉ុន្តែអ្វីដែលគេស្មានមិនត្រូវចិត្តខ្ញុំហ្នឹងគឺខ្ញុំចេញមកគឺមានចិត្តមេត្តាគឺមិនបង្ហាញអំពីការចងពៀនហ្នឹងទេ
So my message to those who torture me, which was your question, is that I wanted a free Nicaragua that will be open for his children and for my children so they could play together in a free country.
អញ្ចឹងចម្លើយរបស់ខ្ញុំគឺខ្ញុំគ្មានចង់បានអ្វីទេចង់ឲ្យបានប្រទេស Nicaragua មួយដែលមានសេរីភាពគ្រប់យ៉ាងសម្រាប់ទាំងអស់គ្នាទាំងកូនចៅរបស់អ្នកដែលធ្វើបាបខ្ញុំទាំងកូនចៅរបស់ខ្ញុំនិងបងប្អូនក្រុមគ្រួសារខ្ញុំដែរ
And I've been very strong against the dictator. In fact, we're working on taking him to international court. I want the dictator to face a truth commission. I want the victims to have justice, but justice is not the same as vengeance. And making that difference gives a lot of legitimacy to your voice, which is a voice for unity.
រឿងដែលសំខាន់មួយទៀតគឺថាខ្ញុំមិនអត់ឲ្យអ្នកប្រព្រឹត្តជនដៃដល់ដែលធ្វើបាបខ្ញុំនឹងប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដទៃទៀតទេក៏ប៉ុន្តែយើងមានវិធីដោះស្រាយយើងផ្ដល់រឿងនេះទៅតុលាការព្រហ្មទណ្ឌអន្តរជាតិទៅគណៈកម្មការស្វែងរកការពិតអំពីការធ្វើទុកបុកម្នេញដល់សកម្មជនអីផ្សេងៗអញ្ចឹងក៏ប៉ុន្តែអ្វីដែលយើងត្រូវចងចាំទាំងអស់គ្នាគឺថាកម្លាំងសម្លេងរបស់យើងរឹងមាំគឺស្ថិតនៅលើការដែលប្រឹងរកយុត្តិធម៌ទៅតាមសន្តិវិធីជាជាងការដែលយើងចងអាឃាតគ្នាហើយសាបព្រោះការស្អប់ខ្ពើមគ្នា
I will end up by saying that those who surround the dictator, the inner circle, if they think that if tomorrow you're going to go back and kill them, send them into prison and do exactly what they did to you, instead of working with you for a new Cambodia, they will become tighter and they will become jealous of you returning to Cambodia. But if you provide a vision for a united country, a vision for reconciliation, that really scares dictators. And believe me, it could happen suddenly, and you have to ready to stand to go back with a clean heart to rebuild the nation. It will happen. It will happen.
បាទហើយជាចុងក្រោយសូមជម្រាបបងប្អូនទាំងអស់គ្នាថាពេលដែលយើងតស៊ូមតិគឺយើងធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យពួកក្រុមផ្ដាច់ការទាំងអ្នកគ្រប់គ្រងរបស់ផ្ដាច់ការផងដឹងថាបើយើងមានការផ្សះផ្សាគ្នាពួកគាត់ក៏បានសក់ដែរក៏ប៉ុន្តែបើយើងធ្វើសកម្មភាពនយោបាយណាមួយធ្វើឲ្យពួកគាត់ខ្លាចដូចថាបើយើងឡើងមកកាន់អំណាចពួកគាត់ច្បាស់ជាដូចទឹកឡើងត្រីស៊ីសមុទ្រទឹកហោចសមុទ្រស៊ីត្រីចង់គាត់នឹងចាប់ផ្ដើមធ្វើឲ្យអាការចាត់ការលើយើងនឹងកាន់តែសាហាវជាងមុនទៀតពួកគាត់ខ្លាចអារឿងសមុទ្រស៊ីត្រីហ្នឹងដូច្នេះយើងធ្វើយ៉ាងណាដើម្បីឲ្យគាត់ដឹងថាអត់មានវប្បធម៌ទឹកឡើងត្រីស៊ីសមុទ្រទឹកហោចសមុទ្រស៊ីត្រីហ្នឹងទេគឺយើងចង់ឲ្យពួកគាត់អាចចូលរួមពេលដែលយើងឡើងកាន់អំណាចពួកគាត់ក៏បានសេចក្តីសុខជាមួយក្រោមការដឹកនាំរបស់យើងដែរហើយបើយើងធ្វើដូច្នេះបានគឺយើងជោគជ័យហើយខ្ញុំជឿថាយើងធ្វើដូច្នេះបានសូមអរគុណ
អរគុណបងប្អូន Felix គាត់ជួបថាការចាប់ដាក់គុកហើយគាត់អត់ចង់មុំទេបងប្អូនគាត់សង្ឃឹមថាថ្ងៃណាមួយកូនគាត់នឹងអាចទៅលេងជាមួយកូនអ្នកធ្វើបាបគាត់នៅក្នុងគុកនឹងនៅប្រទេស Nicaragua ដែលមានប្រជាធិបតេយ្យនៅថ្ងៃអនាគតសូមតែដែរគាត់មួយខ្លាំង